Hey folks, welcome to Free Press Sports with Carlson. Shawn, it's a Lions podcast these days. And unfortunately, Carlos, I did not get to record with you after the game. That was Monday night, right?
I think it was Monday night / Tuesday morning, yes.
Yeah, it was late. So we'll make it up here at our regularly slotted podcast. And we can just talk about our two columns. So they held mine, but our columns said the opposite thing. So let's have fun. You got into, the not making a move before the deadline, other than Donovan Peoples-Jones, a receiver from Cleveland.
Which is really not
by way,
but yeah.
By way of Cass Tech and University of Michigan. Local young fella coming home, I guess. But you argued in your column that, could hurt the team down the road, especially in the playoffs. And I argued that if this is the group that you have faith in, if you say, okay, these guys have turned this team around in a couple of years and got them playoff worthy, then have a little faith in what they're doing and what they see and their reasons behind it. Not that they shared all their reasonings. They just talk about a plan. But in any case, let's hear it. Let's hear why you decided to choose with all the talk radio fans out there and wanted a piece of their hide for not making a move.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think it was Dave Burkett who asked a really great question after the game when Campbell talked and said, when you consider making moves for trades, do you consider what your competitors are doing, your closest competitors in this race, right? And Campbell said, no, not really. He wasn't completely convincing, I think. I don't think he had a ton of conviction behind what he was saying, but said, no, it's about us and whatever, which is kind of right. You shouldn't look at the Joneses too much, but when it's this tight, when you're the number 2 seed in the NFC, and the Eagles are making moves, and all the other teams around you are making moves who are vying for that top seed in the playoffs and getting a bye and getting home field advantage to the playoffs. You have to consider that. You have to think about what are other teams doing. It's an arms race, right? And the Lions are a very good team. They don't have a lot of stars, and I think that's not only do they not have a lot of stars, but there's also, and no team is perfect, and you have to consider your deficiencies. Every team has them. And that's the little difference, though, I think, to me, is being able to say, we're very good, but we can be better. You can always be better. And the Lions will sell it, which I'm sure you bought hook, line, and sinker, go team, rah, rah, one pride, marching down the field and all that. But they want to sell it as, listen, it's about team chemistry. It's about the right fit and the right price and whatever. I mean, all these guys that people are getting, the Chase Youngs out there, the Montez Sweats, and, they're giving up second rounders, third rounders. I mean, that's not an arm and a leg. You're not, and I don't know, did they want 2 first-round picks for Jerry Jeudy, or I don't know. That's what you don't know is what the price was. Was it outlandish for some other players? Brian Burns supposedly, with Carolina, supposedly they turned down 2 first-round picks, or they were asking for 2 first-round picks, and that, so we don't ever really, that never really comes to light. It's hard. Maybe it'll leak out here and there. But I think you need to give yourself the absolute best chance. And let's just remember the other side of this. And even though Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes have a ton of equity, rightly so, they built it up with the team and the fans and even the media, you have to sometimes think about making the choices that are defendable. And if you say, hey, we went out and got, whoever, we gave up a second round pick for this defensive lineman or whatever you need, or as a secondary player, a cornerback or whatever. If it doesn't work out, you can say, hey, we put our best foot forward. We did what we could, as much as we could, to improve this team for this run. And as Dave Burkett said before, and I agree with him, you never know how long that window of winning is going to be open. So I think they could have done more. They should have done more. I don't think anybody would have cared. Hell, if you'd given up a first round pick for for Burns or whatever, I don't think people would have cared if you give up a second round pick for sure. And there's always the part to team chemistry that who knows? We don't know what these players are like. Only they can really answer that. So they should have done more. They could have given themselves the absolute best chance to have a difference maker in one of their areas of deficiencies, and they just didn't do it, and I think everybody's disappointed. Most people are disappointed with that.
All right, let me ask you this. Why do you think they didn't do it?
Why didn't they? I think, this is just me completely speculating, is that Brad Holmes is thinking, I'm building a dynasty that will last 1,000 years, so I'm not going to give up a second round pick or a first round pick or a second and a third, whatever they wanted for certain players. I just think he didn't want to do that. He wanted to hold on to his picks and build for the future. That's my guess. There's nothing else out there that, to me, it's hard to believe that you can know everything about every player out there, that this guy doesn't quite fit our locker room, or this guy doesn't fit this, or this guy. To me, unless you're talking about a Ray Rice type player, or maybe even an Ndamukong Suh, kind of a guy who's all about me or whatever, a potentially toxic player. I don't think there are that many toxic players out there. I think that you should be able to make a trade and find somebody who can help you for the short term, for 10 games, and then into the playoffs. So that's my speculation, is just that I think he doesn't want to give up too much of the future of his draft capital. That's my guess. Just a guess.
Do you think that they think they're a Super Bowl winning team right now?
I think that they believe that they can get to the Super Bowl and possibly win it. Yeah, I think they believe that. But it's the difference in believing that you have a good team, that you have a capable team, and the difference between knowing you have a team that people are expecting you to get there. That you're the Chiefs or you're the Eagles, someone like that. If the difference between that, because I think there's probably like 5 teams in each conference who believe they're going to get to the Super Bowl this year, that they can do it. And that's probably true. And the Lions are in that category. We can get there, but they haven't been there. They've never been there. So and that's the one thing with football, is sometimes their memory is either short or they don't have it, because even as though they've played, Campbell's been a player for the team and whatever, they all think that kind of, the Lions were invented when they arrived. When Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes, that's when the Lions really began, their time in the NFL. The history doesn't matter or whatever. But I think history does matter a lot of times when you don't have playoff success, when you haven't done it with this group, you haven't been to the playoffs, you haven't won a playoff game, you haven't had to play a playoff game on the road with these players, with these coaches. That matters. So teams can do it, teams can get there, but they lack that experience. So you need to do, to me, you need to do as much as you can to help yourself get there. Don't give yourself excuses. Don't, injuries are going to happen. You just can't think that, I feel good about our guys. And I think if they were steamrolling teams, if they were destroying teams, if they had, if they hadn't just collapsed in Baltimore against a pretty good Ravens team, that kind of a playoff caliber team, they just got crushed. That's the difference to me. That's the thing. You're gonna play a team like the Ravens. You're gonna maybe have to go on the road and play a team like the Ravens. You just got your teeth kicked in 2 weeks ago. So you're feeling great about yourself right now? I don't think so. Like that to me is, you're still not quite there.
No, I agree. They're not. And I think they know they're not. And here's another question. Do they beat the Ravens with Montez Sweat?
Probably not. Not one player that can't do everything. It's not a salvation, but it probably would have helped. It's hard to quantify that. How much does one player, sometimes you see one player take over a game. And certainly if Sweat or Chase Young or something like that could have gotten to Lamar Jackson, that changes things. As you know, the calculus of NFL is very hard to figure out, of how one player does something and it affects the whole different, dynamic of the game. But yeah, that's why defensive linemen, edge rushers, and rushers are so valuable, because they impact the game disproportionately the way that a good quarterback affects it on the other side. So, but I think that having adding an elite edge rusher, definitely would have been a big deal. Or also the secondary, you gotta figure that too. Is right now, you're a Jerry Jeudy injury away from, or a Jerry Jacobs injury away from having a lot of troubles and putting Will Harris out there. So that's what's worrisome. You still got, what are they at? There are 8 games. They got 9 games left. Got a long way to go to stay healthy. And that's the one thing with the Lions is they have pretty good mid-level, talent, a little bit above probably mid-level talent. They don't have a ton of depth, and they don't have a lot of elite players. You look at the really good teams that are going to make, the Super Bowl or expected to go deep in them. They have pretty much a Pro Bowler almost at every level, position group or whatever. I mean, it's close to it. So some all pros. I mean, that's where the Lions are not there talent-wise, I think. They're not that far off. But that's where hey, this is your chance. This is your one chance right here. Boom. Go get a player. Go get a proven veteran, productive guy who can make a difference for you somewhere. I wouldn't have cared where, Shawn, honestly. I was saying receiver the other day because after the last 2 games, lineman, defensive back, somewhere, position of need, that would have been enough just to show people hey, we're doing whatever we can. This is what we could do.
So you think they're one player away from a Super Bowl run?
I think there's one player. Yeah, one guy could make a difference. They're that good. They're good enough that you can say one player could make that difference. Because if you have Chase Young and Aiden Hutchinson's a little banged up, he helps pick up the slack in that game. If you have both of them, that's a fearsome pass rush that's going to mess with the other. So I think that's when you come to this point. Yeah, I think you're right now. It's kind of weird to say it, isn't it? But the Lions are. I think they're one player away.
Yeah, I don't think they're an edge rusher away from the Super Bowl run, especially those 2 guys are both good players, but Chase Young has played half the time he's been in the league. So
yeah, he's had injury issues. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So that's a big.
I'm not
gamble.
saying it was Chase Young. I'm saying someone else.
He's a little undersized. When the 49ers played the Eagles last year in the NFC title game, they had is one of the best couple defenses in the league. I'm talking about the 49ers and the great defensive line and probably arguably the best defensive lineman in Bosa. But he was going up against a good offensive tackle, and he didn't do a whole lot, right? So, no, I get it. The defensive linemen.
There's no guarantee. You will never get a guarantee. You could add Tom Brady, you're not going to win a Super Bowl necessarily.
No, for sure. Defensive linemen are really important. But it's so much. It's amazing how often it's matchup dependent too. Even the best defensive lineman against a really good tackle might get to the quarterback once in a game.
There's also pressure.
Does that there is no you can force a quarterback to make quick throws, but to me you look at the amount of teams that made moves before the deadline, and there weren't, I don't know, maybe a third of the league. And God, did any of the top contenders make much of a move in the AFC? I don't know that they did. The NFC, for whatever reason, it was the NFC, and I think it's specific, and there are reasons why those teams did it. And the teams that did it, especially Philly and San Francisco, were in either the Super Bowl or the NFC title game. Seattle made a move; they were in the playoffs, and they need help defensively, obviously. But yeah, it just comes down. I want to ask you a question about philosophy and how you build a team, and why so many owners, general managers, even coaches that are involved in personnel stuff, when there's sort of a grouping at the top of organization, why they do make decisions like they did, like the Lions did before the deadline, because it's fairly common, right? I mean, it's common in our town. The Wings are building that way. Troy Weaver's building that way a little bit. Even Scott Harris has come in and didn't want to immediately start, right? He wanted to be patient. So I want to get your philosophy on why sports teams do this when we come back after this quick break. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Put your thinking cap on. We'll be right back with more Free Press Sports with Carlson Shawn. Welcome back to Free Press Sports with Carlson Shawn. All right. I hope you use that time in a very time away from our listeners here in a very productive manner.
I was looking for my thinking cap on, and it's getting cold now, so I could use it. But I don't know if I have one, Shawn.
Look, I get it. Sometimes teams outthink themselves, and they're all general managers, front offices are not created equal, et cetera, et cetera. But sometimes you see the patience, and when a team is showing that they are building something, and then there's an opportunity or a trade deadline comes up or whatever, an off season comes up, and they don't do as much in the off season as maybe a fan base wants, then all of a sudden you're willing to walk away. It was funny to me how angry, downright angry as part of the Lions fan base was when the deadline hit and there were no moves, man. It's like, okay, and like Brad Holmes doesn't know what he's doing. So a week earlier, well, the Baltimore loss happened a week earlier, right? But for most of this season, this fan base has been just pinching itself because they thought the Lions would be good. But it's one thing to think it and then to actually have it happen. So, but all of a sudden, you get a little success and you think, okay, we can have even more. We can go even more. And you no pun intended, but you move the goalposts all the time. Fans do all the time, all the time. So what was before the season? A division title and maybe a home playoff game. That would be great. We're building, and then we go from there. Well, that all went out the window this week with the trade deadline when all of a sudden the Lions didn't go get Chase Young or Montez Sweat, who were supposed to be saviors. Montez Sweat, by the way, another great player, but I don't know anything about Montez Sweat other than Mark D'Antonio wasn't too keen on having him in East Lansing back when the Spartans were rolling. But you can change a lot from the time you're 20 to 27 or however old he is, 28. But in any case, why do you think that? Because you've subtly poked at Steve Yzerman. You haven't at Scott Harris yet. He hadn't been here long enough. But why does that frustrate you that these people that know a whole lot more about team building sports than we do want to take their time? Because
the lack of urgency, I think, bothers me in any walk of life. There's time for urgency and there's time for building something a little more slowly. The Scott Harris thing, to me, the Tigers are different. They're in a different category in baseball because they're changing a whole philosophy of how they pitch and hit. And that takes time. And baseball's a more gradual sport, kind of like hockey a little bit, where you draft a guy and maybe we'll see you in 3 years, So to me, that's a little bit different. But the Yzerman thing, and that's a great example, Shawn, because, the Alex DeBrincat signing was absolutely what this team needed. It needed somebody like that. Some proven, veteran, productive guy, borderline star to really inject something into that. And talent matters. I mean, I know that you've been a youth basketball coach and stuff, and I know that you think it's all about coaching and that coaching can do it all and whatever. You get the right mix of guys and chemistry and all this
talent.
Great.
No, you got to have talent.
The smart coach who has the game plan, he can make the whole difference. And you love Dan Campbell and you think of himself, probably like you a little bit, but it's not that. It's about the players. It's about the talent. And it's really hard to trump talent. I'm watching the World Series and, that's baseball for you, Shawn, but it's a World Series and the Rangers and the Diamondbacks. And I've been pulling for the Diamondbacks. Yes, they limited my Dodgers, but I've been pulling them because they're plucky. They were a wild card team and they had to go to Philly and all this stuff and they were down and I'm rooting for them. And well, the Rangers have more talent. They won their division and they just destroyed them the other night. When we're recording this, the game 30, I think it was. Like 11 runs, Corey Seager and these guys. I mean, it's just too much. I mean, that's just sometimes talent. I mean, not sometimes, talent does matter. And I'm okay with putting a team together and having some thought to it and a philosophy of what you want to do. Totally fine. But in football especially, you need to get there faster. You can't think, and this is the problem with the Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn thing, was they were going to build the Patriots. But it was going to take a long time to flush out all the players that Matt Patricia didn't like and to bring in his kind of players, to turn over the roster that much, and also to have those players work out. I mean, you're talking about a 5-6 year plan, and unless you're Bill Belichick, you're not going to get that kind of time. So that's the problem, is urgency. And again, this is pure speculation. I mean, maybe Brad Holmes went after Jerry Jeudy, the the receiver with the Broncos. Maybe he went after Jalen Johnson, the cornerback with the Bears, and they wanted, 5 first rounders. I don't know. I don't know what the price was. I know that just pretty much, like, and Brad Holmes said this, on Tuesday, was saying that there are players out there, you all know who the names were. I'm sure you could guess, whatever, and it didn't work out, whatever. These guys and their personnel departments, they call around. They check on everybody. Hey, sometimes it's a no-go. It's a interdivision trade. Bears aren't going to do that, whatever. Jerry Jeudy, maybe Sean Payton, hey, discount for my old protege, Dan Campbell. I'm going to give you, just give me 3 first rounders for Jeudy, whatever. You never know, right? What the asking price is, and nobody's ever going to tell us that. But you need to, in a way, I respect that they're going to do it their way. They're going to stick to their guns. They're not going to overpay for a player that they don't love for whatever reason, price, fit, whatever it might be. But on the other hand, this is what you're going to, the price you pay for that, for not making those moves, is criticism from the media, from the fans, saying you guys felt like you were sitting on your hands when your direct rivals and contenders, for the playoffs did something. They were, you can say, they made better teams made moves than you did. So that's the frustration. But I think that's, you just, in the NFL, careers are short, windows are short, all that stuff. You're going to probably lose Ben Johnson, all that stuff. The things change very quickly in the NFL. So I think kind of holding on to a second round draft pick so you can draft Levi Onwuzurike again, I don't love it. Do something now. Be in the moment. And it's not really about appeasing the fans or the media, but it's like, hey, let's do it. Let's go all in. And this team it's all about, Dan Campbell and grit and let's do it and hand slapping and fiving and Brad Holmes high-fiving fans after the games. It's all, where was that energy and urgency in the trade deadline? Just, whoop, nah, we're good. We're going to get a backup receiver. That should be good. It felt so opposite of, like, kind of what you were saying, right? All the energy, all the momentum, everything. Okay, we're heading into the bye 6-2, second seed in the NFC, and then nothing happened. So that's, I think, the disappointment, right? But urgency, man, I want to see it from every team as soon as you can show it. And that's my criticism of Yzerman. And I hope that the Lions and hey, one thing I will say about Brad Holmes and the Lions is they signed Terry Bridgewater, and I think that was a great signing, because that is definitely a key piece of insurance in case something happens to Goff, right? That wasn't something where we just hope that Jared Goff stays healthy. We're not going to take a chance here. We're not going to pin our playoff hopes on Nate Sudfeld or David Blau or whoever, right? It's going to be a proven Pro Bowl guy that we have here in case we need him. And that's what you need, is do as much as you can to help yourself.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't agree with you about Yzerman either. I don't believe DeBrincat's been great this year.
You wrote a column saying that they probably need to get DeBrincat before they sign him.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, for sure. This year. The thing about hockey, and you mentioned it, it's baseball. It's even true with football. It's just we get lost a little bit. We get lost in the sauce a little bit with football because teams can turn around fairly quickly. And so we think that players come in and, they also come in after 3 years of college, right? And it's a little bit different sometimes
that's the pros. That's the minor leagues. Yeah,
high school players get drafted sometimes at baseball, and then they get, they're hanging out in Florida for 3 or 4 years.
Right.
And hockey players get drafted at 18 sometimes, and they're over in Sweden or wherever. And so NFL get players or get drafted, and they're 21. So the curve is not quite as steep, but there's still a fair amount of development that goes with a lot of players. The problem is you see guys that come in after 3 or 4 years of college and are good right away and are great by their second or third year. But that's not the case for everybody. Campbell harps on that all the time about not everybody develops at the same rate. But, get back to the Wings for a second. What Yzerman did made total sense to me. He's got a bunch of young guys. He's still trying to figure out who he has. He didn't want to bring in that pop until he had a little bit better sense of what he had. And that makes sense to me. And it's similar in baseball. you got a bunch of young guys. You got a chance to go get Cabrera. Okay, fine. You never turned down Miguel Cabrera, but whatever the equivalent of DeBrincat in baseball, I can't even think of a player off the top of my head right now. But that's different. You want to time that up in the right way. So there are a few thoughts to me. Holmes and Campbell, you talked about equity. They've talked about having a plan, and they've shown that they can put a team together and build a team. Have they been perfect with every decision? No, they have not. No general manager is. You mentioned Levi in the second round. You know what they did? They got a rookie tight end who was a second round pick, who's not so bad either. So, I don't know what their draft hit rate is. If you look, it's at least 50%, which is really high in terms of getting guys. And so let's go back though for a sec. Do they have stars? I keep hearing this question. No, not necessarily right now, but do they have guys on the roster that could be stars? That's the question. That's, to me, the more important question. They think they do, and they got to add more to that. So what's this team, what are these young guys going to look like in a year? So you couple that with the idea that they don't think they're quite a Super Bowl team and that one player is not going to make a difference. I don't know that. Fans get frustrated sometimes with the culture thing and the fit thing, and I understand that. It does matter. Talent matters more, but you got to have both. Clearly, I think fans understand that. But I just don't. You're assuming that if they go get Montez Sweat or Chase Young, they're going to get to the Super Bowl. That's why there's anger, because there's an assumption. And I mentioned Jim Leland's name from time to time. He was a wise old soul, and he used to talk about the criticism he'd get if he made a move or when he pulled a pitcher or however he made the lineup. And he said, I get it. I'm going to get criticism. That's part of the job, and I don't mind that at all. He said, but just think about this for a second, though. You're assuming that the other move would have worked. That's where a lot of the emotion comes from, the anger. And to me, and I take that out that's how I write a column. I take it out. And I appreciate columnists or opinion folks that want to adopt the fan person and are a lot more emotional about it. I totally understand that. And that's cool. There's a lot of ways to opine or give an opinion or analysis about sports. But I tend to remove that in terms of when decision-making, when team building or coaching, when choices are made on the field, play-by-play or whatever. I don't think Chase Young or Montez Sweat or even Jerry Jeudy, who Denver fans are not happy with at all, by the way.
He wanted it, yeah. He's talking about trade, and Jalen Johnson wanted to trade.
Denver fans aren't happy with him because they don't think he's been very good. Now, you could argue it's Russell Wilson and the offensive line and whatever, but in any case, I don't think they were a player away, and especially those two guys, and they're fine. Yeah, so you're balancing out. Okay, if we bring them in and give up a pick, it's Super Bowl or bust, right? Because you're not going to re-sign them. I don't think you like them enough to re-sign them and pay them. That's not how you're building your team. And they're both free agents at the end of the season, unrestricted. So I think that's the calculus they made. I don't know. I don't have enough intel to know if it was chemistry or whatever. I just think when a front office starts to show you they know how to build a team, and these guys so far have, they deserve the benefit of the doubt until they show you they don't. And they've not shown that yet.
Yeah, they haven't also made the playoffs. So that's another thing is, they definitely have like I said, built up a lot of equity, right? And they have put together a very good team. But the problem is that if you don't do it this year, if you don't seize the moment this year,
you're not listening to what they're saying. A lot of things
can change. A lot. You can be looking at two different.
You're not listening to what they're saying, right? You're not. Are you? Or either that or you don't believe it. Who do they keep saying they want to be? The Steelers,
Gritty
the
team.
Ravens? No, whatever. No, they want to be the Steelers or the Ravens. They want to be a franchise. You're talking about a short window, whatever. These are franchise. They're trying to build a franchise where you're in. The Baltimore Ravens have been in the playoffs for 8 of the last 11 years or whatever. The Steelers have a longer stretch than that. That's what they're trying to do. So that you give yourself a shot every year or every other year over the span of a decade.
How many Steelers are there? How many Ravens are there? Are there more teams in the NFL that are not like those teams?
Well, of course there are, but why wouldn't you shoot to be one of the model the Cowboys? I think they're more relevant because of the psychology that they're the Cowboys as you actually look at their record. You know what I mean? They're not
Yeah.
quite. They're not there. Although they have had obviously sustained periods of success. What the 49ers are doing right now, without a quarterback,
And they
by
got
the way.
Chase Young. I love it. And they got Randy Gregory too.
They were in the NFC title game last year. They've just lost 3 in a row. So it's easy for them to do because they know they're good enough to be in the Super Bowl because they were a few plays. Well, they were a couple of injuries away last year. Philadelphia was in the Super Bowl. They know they're there. So, of course, they're going to go out and do it. Once you get to that level, then you can keep adding and making deals at the deadline and so on.
So you don't think they're at that level
to maintain?
Not you don't quite. Think that you don't think they're at that they're going to make the Super Bowl this year?
I mean, they could. They get the right matchups. You get turnovers,
but
whatever.
Do you think
they could.
They're going? Not could. Yeah, I could grow a pair of wings and fly.
No,
away.
I don't think they're going to. I mean, they could maybe, but I don't think.
Do you think they will or not? Do you think they're a Super Bowl team right now?
No,
right now
I don't. They played 3 good teams this year.
You have no faith in draft and Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell.
No, I think they're a playoff team, but there's a difference between being a playoff team and being a Super Bowl team. And I get it. Sometimes that difference isn't as much in some years, right? Where the Super Bowl champ is not a whole lot better than most of the other teams in the playoffs. Sometimes it's like that, absolutely, in the NFL. And right? It's often like that in hockey and baseball. The best team, I mean, Florida last year in the NHL, whatever. That happens. I get that. But no, I don't think as it stands right now, they're a betting Super Bowl team.
You shouldn't make these kind of moves unless you've been to the Super Bowl, unless you can prove that you have that kind of level of competency and track record.
I'm saying they understand what they have and who they are, and they know a lot better than we do. That's what I'm saying. And they have shown that they can build a team. They're on their way, to me.
Mm-hmm. So until this year, when they get to the NFC title, then next year they can make a more aggressive move in the trade deadline. Is that what you're saying?
They might be a little bit more aggressive, maybe. I mean, I don't know, maybe not. All I know is that they're trying to build something that lasts, and that's more important to them. And you either with that or you're not. And I happen to think that's a pretty good thing to shoot for.
Yeah, I'm not talking about trading your franchise, all your draft picks for Ricky Williams or Mitch Trubisky or anything like that. That's what I'm talking. I'm not talking about sending a second round pick, or a second.
For an inconsistent receiver who's got a big name, or an injury prone defensive end, or another defensive end who's good but has had some issues, right? Just in terms of. That's what you're doing? No, it's not.
Or a really good cornerback from the Bears or whatever. I mean,
you have no idea what the Bears wanted, right? You have no idea what they wanted, or what the Vikings may have wanted for their defensive end. No, but you don't know that. You can't. It's easy for us to say. It's like playing John Madden on a video, as opposed to going out and playing real football. It's easy to sit there. Well, they should have done that. You don't know that. There are 32 teams out there.
Yeah, I think playing real football is easier than playing Madden. But anyway, that's the thing is with the draft picks. I look at draft picks as kind of like a little bit like timeouts. There's always ways to stop the clock. You don't have to just have 3 timeouts. That's all we have. Let's save them like they're gold nuggets. There's always a way to get more draft picks. I mean, talking about a first round draft pick is like, oh my God, how could you ever get rid of it? How much is Jack Campbell doing for you right now? Look, you never know what these guys are going to be.
That's the point. They're going
to have a low draft pick. By the way, they're going to be picking somewhere in the late 20s probably. So how much
found
is that
a lot of their best?
You?
Well, I don't know. They found some awfully good players in the second and third rounds.
But it's all a crapshoot.
Jack Campbell, of course it is. But they've done it better than most the last couple of years. I mean, and even then, you still whiff. Jack Campbell's a great example. Yeah, exactly. What's he going to be like in a year from now? Right. You know what I mean? You mentioned in your column the playoffs. Well, okay, how much better Chase Young and Montez Sweat than if James Houston comes back, which they think he will, and he's in the playoffs? How much better are those two guys than Houston was a year? If Houston is like he was a year ago, what's the production difference? There isn't any.
If he comes back and if he's productive,
if Chase Young stays,
a 1 year size sample,
they're banking on that. They're banking on the fact that they got a Pro Bowl level safety who could come back, right? They're not going to get their cornerback back. Mosley's out. But that's the thing, not only that, they've got a couple of linemen. Who knows if the offensive linemen are going to get healthy, but that's what they're banking on. They got two difference makers that could be back for the playoffs. I mean, I was surprised I didn't hear more about that. And I didn't mention that in I didn't mention their names in the column that I wrote yesterday. That I'll say was, I'll pull a Carlos line here and say that was buried for you. But no. I'm just kidding.
I think they got mixed up, Shawn. They switched.
No. I'm just kidding. But I did make that point that they believe in that guys are going to come back from injuries and there's still going to be development. We saw, and I didn't even write about this. Going to write about this at some point. What Jahmyr Gibbs the other day did against the Ravens, and he started to show a little bit of that against the Raiders. He started to show that against Baltimore the week before. That's what they're banking on. It's not some chemistry.
Banking on Jahmyr Gibbs to play defense.
No. What he represents. That's what they're banking on. You can either buy into it or not. It's fine. It's whatever. It's your choice. It's
okay. Jahmyr Gibbs. Yeah, choice. They got a rookie. Whatever. Who did they have before that? They got David Montgomery. They weren't like hoping that the rookie is going to save them. That was a smart move. Let's have a veteran, a proven veteran, and then let's add some rookie, some young talent
in the
there.
In the off season, when you have a lot more time to go out and figure it out, and there's you know what teams are going to want this and other teams, and you can kind of shop around and figure all that out. And when the whole of free agents are available, right, and not just folks that are disgruntled or whatever. I mean, it's different. The off season's a much better time to build than me. And sign free agents or even make trades.
Is, but right now you're in it. You've gotten here. You've done all the work. You've done the draft. You're
assuming there's a panacea out there.
And then you're not going to do anything.
But you're assuming there's a panacea out there. I'm going to trust the guys that know a hell of a lot more about football.
Let's not forget this.
Have shown they deserve that. Until they don't. And when they don't, then fine. Rip them to shreds.
So what is it they don't? If they don't get to the NFC title game,
if they don't make the playoffs this year, for example,
all they have to do is make the playoffs. They make the playoffs and then they lose to the Vikings.
Yes, because that was the goal.
They made the playoffs. It worked out. They didn't need Montez Sweat or Chase Young.
Because that's the goal. Don't get confused by their record.
The goal is not to make the playoffs. The goal is to win the division. The goal is to win the division and get a home playoff game and win it, by the way. Win a home playoff game. That's the goal.
I've heard all along to get to that home playoff game, but don't let the 6-2 record fool you. They've played 3 good teams. They've lost to 2 of them and beat another one by a point who were without their second and third best players. That's the thing. It's easy.
That's exactly the point is they lost to 2 good playoff teams. So you need help. You need help. This is how you get it.
Well, of course they do. They're building a team. They're not going to turn themselves into a Super Bowl team with Montez Sweat or Chase Young, because you're not going to get both of them. They're not. They're not one player away. They got 2 guys that are really good players. They're hoping to get back by the time they get to the playoffs. They're banking on themselves. They got a plan. They're trying to build something out here. You either believe in it or you don't. You believe that they know what they've got, and they believe in what they got. Jahmyr Gibbs is a good example of that. I don't know if they'll have other guys that'll hit. Will Jack Campbell come along at some point? They think he will.
This year.
I don't know. Who knows? You never know.
CJ Gardner. Right? So look at it this way, right? You went out in free agency, you made some moves, and then you got injuries, right? CJ Gardner-Johnson gets hurt. Emmanuel Mosley gets hurt. Here's your chance to make up for that. Here's your chance to say, hey, we had a plan, but these guys got hurt. So let's add to that. Let's go get a really good, player in the secondary. Let's do that. Defensive back. Let's make up for that loss. And they haven't.
How much more is Brian Branch gonna get better? Right? I mean, they're going to get CJ Gardner. They'll get CJ. No. But they got
Cam Sutton. If Cam Sutton or Jerry Jacobs gets hurt, they're in trouble. You need 2 outside cornerbacks.
Any team that loses, I remember one year when the Jets were rolling and they had, who was their great cornerback? He was the best cornerback in the league for a while, and they lost him. He ended up going to the Patriots and won
Revis.
Won a Super Bowl with him. He got hurt one year, and that was it. So the Jet, you don't just go find another guy. If they lose both those cornerbacks, then that's a huge issue. And you can't fix that at the trade deadline. They're not just good quality. I'm not saying those guys are Pro Bowlers or not, but Sutton and Jacobs have shown that they're nice, solid players, good players. You can't just go find those guys like that. Did you look at the teams that traded and how many there were, how few there were, right?
Yeah, those guys
that's
don't
the other
shake.
thing. Fans
Those guys don't
act
shake
like
loose.
there were moves all over the place. Oh, I want to go get this cornerback. I'm going to go. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, but when you have Jalen Jennings in Chicago saying he wants a trade, like you're already halfway there. What do you need to do? We don't know what the price was.
You have no idea what they wanted.
But the Bills got Russell Douglas, third round pick for that guy. So, that's you need to do something.
The Bills again who've been in the playoffs and had their couple of years further along. So it makes more sense for them to do that. All these teams that did that
by your logic, if you don't make the playoffs, then you never have to do this. So you keep saying, "No, we're still not there. They're still not there." You don't have to.
No,
have
you
any
don't.
urgency.
It's why it gets back to Iserman. No, I completely agree with that. That's not how you build. Not if you want something lasting. I completely agree with the people that know a whole lot more about this than we do. The successful people.
Yeah, but sometimes, and not sometimes, a lot of times, most of these executives are very conservative because they don't want to give up their capital, right? For something that's unknown sometimes.
No, well, for sure.
It's risky. They're usually risk averse. Most of these people are risk averse, Shawn.
That's not true. They'll tell.
Absolutely.
No, that's not true. They will take a gamble when they're ready to take a gamble. They'll take a chance, right?
But they usually don't. They usually don't. You don't see a lot of huge signings.
They do both. They do both. They build, they have their ways, they want to be patient, and then when they're ready to take a risk, they do. That's how they get in, right? I mean, the good ones.
The funny thing is you think about the trades and all that stuff, right? And I don't remember what the trade was for Miguel Cabrera. The problem is the bad trades, or the bad signings, the Javier Baez's, those are the ones that stick with you more. The terrible ones that you got to live with for a long time.
I remember
that changes the calculus for a lot of these guys as well.
Oh my goodness.
Are we going to take a chance?
Dombrowski, it's funny. I remember when he was rolling with the Tigers, I used to have, many emails I used to get often from the same group of really frustrated people because they couldn't win the World Series, right? And they were all over Dombrowski. I would get these tirades over and over and over every single season. And you'd go back and you'd look at Dombrowski's record and the moves that he made. Now, obviously, he's won a World Series in Florida. He won a World Series in Boston. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. But anyway, and he couldn't quite get it done here. But the list of moves he made, and he made some moves that didn't work out. But the moves that did, he went and got Max Scherzer off your beloved Diamondbacks. Whatever. There was just Doug Fister out of Seattle. There was just move after move.
Dombrowski was different. And even your boy,
Holland. The fan base got to the point where they couldn't. It was a love-hate, and then toward the end, because they complained about the bullpen or the farm system or whatever, like you're supposed to be perfect. But it was all because they couldn't quite win. Now, if the Lions start showing they get to the playoffs, but they can't get over the hump, they don't have enough, whatever, who knows? I don't know whether it's Jared Goff or whatever. But yeah, then fine. Then you'll see that. But sometimes, I don't know. Sometimes you don't understand what you have when you have it, right? As a fan base, but I'm not with you at all. I think these guys are willing to take chances. It's got to be the right one. So until the Lions show they don't know what they're doing, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. You want to get in there and run things yourself? That's okay. There are different ways. There are different ways to do this. All right, let's take a quick break and come back with more Free Press Sports with Carl, Shawn, and Carl's favorite thing. Welcome back to Free Press Sports with Carlson Shawn. What's your favorite thing, Carl? It's that time of the show. It's the end of the show. You're going to send it off. You're going to send us off with a little bouquet, a lovely bouquet.
Yeah, my favorite thing was pretty simple. It was Halloween, and we recently moved, and so it was our first Halloween in a new neighborhood and new kids and all that. And we weren't sure. We'd ask the neighbors, "What's it like around here? What's it?" And it was kind of like, well, sometimes you get a lot. Sometimes some years it's been pretty quiet. And so we really weren't sure what to expect. And there's always that fine balance, Shawn, of buying not too much candy so that there's not too much left over and you don't put on 5 pounds. So it was it's a tricky line to walk. But it was cold, as we all know in Michigan. It was really cold. It snowed a little bit. right before the kids came. But we got a really nice, steady run of kids coming. And I told you, I think before the show, that one of them showed up, a little cute boy, 6 years old or so, dressed up as Steph Curry. It was really cute. And so it was really nice to see. I was watching the World Series and answering the door. So it was a nice, pleasant reminder that hopefully we will have more trick-or-treaters. And it used to be, it was never my favorite holiday as a kid, because when I was really young, I felt like, this is weird. I'm going begging for candy, and I was very shy. So it bothered me to do that. But then later, as I got a little bit older, like, oh no, this is kind of fun, and I look forward to the dressing up and picking up the costumes. But it's nice to see that the kids are doing that now. Even though our kids aren't home anymore and they don't do that, it's cool to have the kids and see the neighbors a little bit. And on a chilly night, we got a pretty good traffic. So really enjoyed it. That was my favorite thing.
No, that's great. We didn't get many trick-or-treaters. Mine, the thing I enjoyed the most, I shouldn't say the most, there's lots of things, but I made a lasagna over the weekend, I want to say.
Is that what you gave out at trick-or-treat? Or did you try to give out little pieces of home-baked lasagna and told them how you made it and everything?
The Lions, as you know, didn't play Sunday, so maybe I made it Sunday. Maybe I made it Saturday. I can't remember. In any case, what I enjoyed about it in particular is the last time I made it, it wasn't nearly as good. I was at a different store and I made a few concessions and cuts in some of the ingredients, and thought, I'll save a little bit of money. And I'm here. I didn't feel like going to the other place where I know I could get the, certain kind of noodle and cheese and so on and so forth. And I learned, it's not that I learned it because I know this, but I was reminded of a valuable lesson. The trade, I don't even know if the trade got finished. It might have, but it sat there.
And talent matters. Yes.
It sat there a little bit. It just wasn't, it wasn't worth it. The $7 or $8 I saved on ingredients wasn't worth it because it didn't get eaten. And, it's usually when I make a lasagna and I feed other people and I pass it around, and I love doing that. And, or the kids come over and take some to go and that sort of thing. So that was one part, the one part of it. The second part was the previous time I made it, before I sort of skimped, it was too salty and I just didn't have my touch. So I had a little bit of PTSD going in. I thought, the last 2 times it's not worked out for various reasons. Let me see if I can do this again. I didn't want to give up, Carlos. And I made it, and it was like I'd made it the first few times. It was as good as ever. It was delicious. In fact, it's a really simple thing, but I put a little extra TLC, and I just tried to feel as I was doing it, and focus in a way. Sometimes I think I can't focus anymore. So that was my favorite thing, to realize that I could still cook a little. That's
yeah.
As you get age, as you age a little bit, sometimes you wonder, can you do the things you used to be able to do? So that was my favorite.
You tell Brad Holmes that? Can you tell him, say, hey, I made this delicious lasagna, Brad? Give him a slice too, by the way, and tell him, but you know what? Really good ingredients matter. All ingredients are not created equal. You have to spend a little more sometimes, but it's worth it.
The reason it didn't turn out the prior week before that with the ingredients was because of the way I, executed it. I didn't execute it very well. Okay. Yeah. So so both matter. Yeah,
by the way, I love lasagna is one of my all-time favorite dishes, except that, as you know, I'm lactose intolerant, so I can't really eat it anymore unless it's at a very high cost intestinally for me. So until they make lactose-free ricotta cheese or whatever, it's going to be a long time for me. But
I'll be on the lookout for you. I'll be on the lookout for you. I only make it a couple times a year. It's not a cheap dish to make, although it goes a long way, right? So if you get a couple dinners out of it, you're good.
And you don't need that much. It's like it does go a long way because it's so heavy.
It is. So, all right. Well, good to see you, Carlos. Thanks. Thanks for everything. You know what I mean by that.
By the way, I have to interrupt you. Our producer, Raman Shan, I think he wants extra credit this week, but he says you can use tofu to replace ricotta. I'm going to defer to you, Shawn. Can you?
Yeah, no, you can. Yeah, it'd be close. Yeah, because ricotta, like tofu, doesn't have a lot of flavor. Yeah, and especially if you get the right kind of ricotta, right kind of tofu.
Season well and add basil. He says, "We need a top chef like like a chef challenge between Chef Robin and Chef Shawn. This we gotta do it.
I'm not. I'm no chef. I'm no chef. Well, the thing about the tofu and the lasagna would be fine because if you made a good tomato sauce, then you're okay.
Yeah.
So, you know what
Robin
I mean?
says he'll learn from Shawn.
No, I just teach myself and learn from other people. So I don't.
You're impressive. Hey, I've been to your house. I've watched you do your stuff, man. You're impressive. I mean, you definitely, you were a pro, man, and it shows. Like you know your way around the kitchen.
I was a short order cook.
Dude, that's the hardest job.
Yeah, no, I used to be quicker when I was younger, for sure. But all right, let's let the listeners go and let's get out of here. We want to thank y'all for listening. First and foremost, we want to thank Robin Chan, the tofu guy, the
Chef Robin.
cook, the Chef Robin, who produces the podcast, who makes this podcast possible. I wish we could just stop with Robin, to be honest with you. He's the one, we got to thank all these other people. That's fine.
Anjanette just pounded the table right now hearing that.
Have egos on the masthead, I guess. So yeah, Anjanette Delgado, Kirkley Crawford, they all help produce this show. Who else? Am I missing somebody else?
Some person, Nicole something or other.
Oh,
Nicole, Avery Nichols. Oh my God, she double fisted pounded the table right now.
Let's thank them again. Thank y'all for joining us. You can obviously find us wherever you find your favorite podcast. Subscribe, rate us when you get there. Hit the like button if there is one, or the dislike button. I don't know. Just do something. Have a little emotion. Have some passion, like our guy Carlos here. Anything else, Carlos?
No. Until next week, we'll talk to you soon.
All righty. Until next week. Can I parrot you? We'll talk to you guys soon.